Hey guys, good morning. It's I think a little after 8:30 Monday morning. Um, I normally work, but I'm dressed up today because my sister is getting married. Is getting married today, so I have a couple hours until I get picked up for it. Um, yeah, so I wanted to do a quick video on something that I have been um, just fascinated by. Especially since, and I think I've been fascinated with this even before the residency, but since starting on it and then having a retreat that was like a month or so ago on this topic, was something that just made me want to continue to study and to dissect it and everything, and it's this idea around prayer. And for me, I'm just in this time of um, like trying to figure out like what is prayer besides, closing your eyes, and then either silently to yourself or verbally speaking a prayer and then reading, the word, whatever passage or passages God brings you to, um, and then pray again, and then hope that he'll answer you right then and there. I don't know why that's what I thought that's how it was supposed to be, but um, I just somehow got that impression. And I just remember like two-ish years ago, I was struggling with hearing from God and wondering why, um, and started to view um, his silence as an enemy. I think I may have mentioned it in a past video where it was. I took it at first as a form of punishment, um, and everything, which when in reality it was a state beyond speaking and thinking. He was really there the whole time, and he was speaking to me the entire time. I just for some reason couldn't see it. But then we just became more. Just we just went into more depth with prayer. When I went on the retreat with the residency, we were dissecting what is prayer and what is worship. Um, and one of the things that came up um, is meditation. And there's actually a couple of tools that I want to show you. Some things that I've read or reading that I'm going to. So this is the meditation manual. How to master meditation, awaken your soul, and transcend the ego in 1 week or less. By Koi Fresco, Wishida Das, who's a YouTuber that I follow on, and subscribe on YouTube. He's a very, very awesome guy. Not everything I agree with, but he does have some insight to gain from his channel and from his book. He also has his book Not So Blind Youth, which is another really good read. The Book of Joy, which I've showed on here, it's also got in it applications, meditations for how to up your chances of having joy. And then the one that I'm currently reading, which is Growing in Love and Wisdom, Tibetan Buddhist Sources for Christian Meditation. And in that one in particular, Susan Stabile grew up Catholic, and it was just dead religion to her. And then somehow wound up spending 20 years as a Buddhist practitioner, and then came back to the Christian faith. And what she realized was that all, if not most, of the sources that she had gained while in Tibet are actually in fact Christian when you break them down. I mean, there are verses where she'll take something that's she'll be explaining a Tibetan Buddhist practice, and she'll be like, "Oh, that's in that part of the Bible," and it'll have you just totally have it'll make you see a way of scripture that you never thought that you'd see, And she says in the book that there's value, and that there's no shame in wanting to enrich one's spiritual life and prayer life. There's no shame and no harm in looking at other faith traditions and other meditation traditions. And she makes a point in saying that we need to be aware of the differences between the Buddhist faith and the Christian faith, and she's gone into a couple of them. But what she doesn't do is she doesn't have those differences immediately go into how you shouldn't be into this stuff because this is what I found to be inadequate. She doesn't do that. What she does is she says that we should be aware of the differences, but we only need to look at what is similar and look in the Bible and have, oh, that is part of the Bible. Wow, can't believe I didn't notice that. Just to kind of give you an example for what I mean. Let me see if I can find a good paragraph here. Let's see. I know I'm gonna find one. Hold on. I'm like midway through this and definitely find something really good. Okay, let's see. Let me see here. No, there's one in here. I'm gonna put this down here while I search. Let's see. I think I know what I was gonna find. Still trying to find the verse that backs it up, but one of the things that she talks about in this is this idea of impermanence, which is a word mainly used by Buddhists, but she does say that even though as Christians we don't use that word, it's basically the same idea. I'm just trying to see if I can find the impermanence chapter. Okay, hold on. Okay. Okay. So I found it. So what I'm going to do is... let me see. Okay, so I'm going to... I'm just going to read a little section of this, and then I'm going to read until I'm quoting 2 verses to back this up, according to her. But in the second chapter, which is over the longest chapter in the book, she has a section of that second chapter called Relationship to the Physical World, Impermanence, and Renunciation. And it reads, religion implies an acceptance of transcendence, of life beyond our ordinary range of perception, of something beyond ourselves and this world. The Dalai Lama put it well when he said that at the heart of all the world's religions is a vision of human life that transcends the boundaries of an individual's physical existence as embodied, finite, and temporal being. A meaningful life in all the faith traditions is one that is lived with an awareness of a supramundane dimension. At the level of our everyday reality, it is easy to lose that awareness and to be consumed by this world. We can easily become wrapped up in our need to earn a living and to perform the daily tasks necessary to sustain our existence. We tend, in the ordinary course of events, to think of life as beginning with our human birth and ending with our human death. If we are spiritual people, however, we know that we are defined by more than our human existence. We understand that this current human existence of ours is a blip in the totality of life eternal. We are temporary visitors to this planet, as one of my Jesuit friends describes it. Nonetheless, we don't tend to behave as though we are temporary visitors. Our everyday selves view the physical world we inhabit as our life. That is, after all, except for those who claim to have memories of past lives, the only life we know. The idea of impermanence captures this reality, that all things in this world are transitory. That is one of the most basic insights of Buddhism, the idea that all of reality is constantly changing from moment to moment, nothing remains stable, nothing is permanent. Our bodies, thoughts, feelings, and all the things of this world are continually in an ongoing process of change. Some changes are readily apparent. My daughter today looks visibly different from the way she did a year ago. The weather in Minneapolis, where I currently live, feels very different in January than it feels in June. Other changes, however, are much more subtle and not as easily perceived. For example, when we look at a chair or table, we see a permanent static object. We see table or chair. I walk downstairs in the morning, and to my perception, I sit on the same stool that was in my kitchen when I went upstairs to bed the night before. Buddhism explains, however, that what we see as a static, unchanging, and solid object is in fact just a series of causally related processes. Think of the way movies were made in a pre-digital age. What we saw was action, but what was really before our eyes was a series of still pictures running rapidly through the projector so as to give the illusion of action and movement. The stool I sat on at breakfast is not only different from the stool I sat on the night before, it is not the same as the stool that existed a moment before I sat down on it. In Buddhist thought, nothing, not objects, people, thoughts, feelings, is permanent. Everything changes moment by moment. Buddhism explains that we are habituated not to see impermanence and thus live under an illusion, the illusion of permanence. We come to believe that the things possess a constancy that they lack. This illusion creates frustration and insecurity as we continually try to grasp the things that are not there. Part of the aim of the Buddhist path is to develop a realization of the impermanent nature of things and to integrate that realization into our lives. Now, this is where she makes the connection of how, even though we're of a different faith than Buddhists, how we share the similar idea. It says here that Christians do not use the term impermanence the way that Buddhists do. However, Christians does have a conception of the transience of all things of this world. In the first letter to the Corinthians, Paul says, if there are gifts of prophecy, they will be done away. If there are tongues, they will cease. If there is knowledge, it will be done away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when the perfect comes, the partial will be done away with. 1 Corinthians 13, 8 through 10. And then in Luke, of the Gospel, Jesus says, heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. And so it's basically just this idea that we think that all there is to this life is this, like, just being, and everything. And while, that there's an aspect to that which is good and which is true, that there is this, we live in the now and the not yet, which is that there is this, which is an aspect of heaven, but then there's also, it's like a little piece of heaven. But to know that all things will pass away, to know that this world will pass away, I will pass away, everything that's in here will pass away. The only thing that will not pass away are the words. And so it's one of those things where, it's one of those things where it just helps me understand myself better and those around me better. Even God in His Word better when looking outside of a faith tradition, when saying, "Oh wow, we may disagree on like some things or some things, but this is something that I do agree with you on, and I'm surprised to find something that I do agree with you on." It's like, wow, let's work on that, and it's just one of those things where, I just feel, and not everybody's wired this way, but I feel like God's wired me this way to for the time being, like outside faith traditions, to better enrich my own, which then leads me to one more thing that I want to show you. I did an Insta story of this, but this is the prayer wheel. My mentor gave this to me last Wednesday. It's something that I've been slowly integrating into my prayer life, where I start and end with praise. Last time I did this, I did the praise and then go into the wanting and confession, the waiting and confession and reading the word and stuff like that. But I think maybe tomorrow, after my read through group or something, I can try to find time in the prayer room or in the cry room to maybe do an hour of the reverse, to do some praising and listening and meditating and everything. So, but yeah, so for me, prayer is more than just the word prayer, and it's more than just the action of this and all that. It's, well, this is a part of it. It's more than just this and speaking. Like, there's like a dichotomy to it. Like with the prayer wheel I just showed you, there's different aspects to the prayer. There's praising prayer, there's waiting prayer, there's confessional prayer, there's reading of the word prayer, there's petition prayer, intercession prayer, singing prayer, meditation prayer. Like one of the things that I've slowly been doing when it came to the meditative state is to just close my eyes, breathe in, breathe out 10 times, and within each time that I'm breathing out, I just repeat the mantra that God has just been showing me pretty much ever since I started the residency, and then bringing it to mind what's been going on in my family and everything, is to just be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. Basically saying that wherever you're at in life, good, bad, in between, even now, fundraising money for my practicum trip to Belfast, Ireland, it's like, God's got me. Like, yeah, sure, I'll be tempted to worry and everything, but I do know that God's got me. And whatever my part is, to help it along, I will do it, and so, but that's just kind of my whole, so far kind of like take on prayer. Yeah, well, I gotta go finish getting ready to watch my sister get married. Yay, the first of the Lockridge getting married. And then just hang out, and then tomorrow, another day of internship, residency, class time. So thank you guys. Have a great rest of your week, or good week, I should say.